is only one way you will forgive Will Graham.
I have to eat him.
Wow, what a season. Still reeling after the events of Mizumono, Hannibal Season 3 set out towards Europe. The story over the course of the season was split into two arcs. The first focused on Hannibal's new life around Europe, and the second, we delved into familiar territory as the Great Red Dragon made his highly anticipated appearance. Throughout the course of the season we've seen old faces return and new ones come into the light, as Hannibal continued to go from strength to strength with each passing episode. There were so many high points throughout the season, my favourites being episode 5, 7, 12 and the finale, episode 13. Wonderfully crafted performances from lead actors Mads Mikkelsen and Hugh Dancy combined together and paved the way from the very beginning, so we knew that Hannibal Season 3 was going to be one hell of a journey. Now for every Hannibal fan heading into Season 3, the same lingering question was still on the edge of the tongue. Who survived that fateful night? Will, Jack, Alana and Abigail were last seen in pools of their own blood, as Hannibal strolled out from his home and set off across the globe with his surprise partner Bedelia. Any normal show would sate the fans' big questions early on, but Hannibal isn't a normal show, and the showrunner Brian Fuller is a very special and unique talent. He had the audacity to have the first episode of Season 3 basically act as its own premiere, focusing solely on Hannibal and Bedelia's new life in Europe. We had absolutely zero answers to that of whom survived the bloodbath. Then episode 2 started us off. Staggered episode after episode, increasing the anxiety, one by one we learn each of our characters' fates. It came to no surprise that everyone's favourite criminal profiler, Will Graham, was the first confirmed survivor. Let's face it, Will was never going to die, at least not yet. He's practically the main character alongside Hannibal himself, and the show has always been focused around their two dynamics together. Now the show did attempt to throw us a curveball at that point, after only just learning about Will's survival and with no information regarding Jack and Alana. Abigail walked straight into Will's hospital ward. She was the main one out of the four that I was pretty much dead set on not coming out of that night alive. Admittedly, the second episode did a very good job at attempting to make me believe otherwise, but no, Abigail was unfortunately a casualty. And I know for a fact that that caught quite a few people out. Friends of mine explained their initial disbelief that they even thought of Abigail surviving. They were so sure that she was a goner, and then it hit them. Will explained there was no place for Abigail in their world, and that she was all part of Will's ever-expanding memory palace. Now then, on to the big ones. Let's face it, more Laurence Fishburne is always a good thing. And that's probably why he was the one I was mainly concerned about. The show has never strayed away for altering parts of the story if it's had to, but Jack Crawford was one of the main ball players in the Hannibal universe. It seemed almost obscene if they removed him from it. So did they? Thankfully, no. I mean, he lost one hell of a lot of blood, but being the titan of who he is, Jack fought for his survival as well. And that left Alana, who was also staying in the world of the living. The aftermath of Mizumono changed everybody, but for certain, Alana changed the most. Apart from being severely injured and impaired, she moved on from practically being the girlfriend of last season. Alana was now vengeful, and she teamed up with someone else who had just as much of a score to settle. It was an interesting change for Alana, which worked to elevate her character back to a level of actually being meaningful. She drifted off that last season as she became so defensive and blind of Hannibal's actions. But her now wanting revenge against the man who was now promised to kill her made perfect sense to Alana's story. So, we all know who she teamed up with, don't we? Mason Verger returns, and he's just as psychotic and maniacal as he's always been. Even as new actor Joe Anderson stepped into Michael Pitt's boots, which was a tough ask to say the least considering how brilliantly Pitt's portrayal was, you could see no difference between versions. That is a compliment to Joe Anderson if there is ever one. It's never easy filling another actor's boots. Let's be honest, everyone near enough hates it when actors don't return and have to be recast. But I suppose having your face cut off has its advantages when it comes to a perfect point of recasting. Again, fantastic performance from Joe Anderson. He deserves any accolades that may come his way. And finally, to wrap up the cast of returning characters, comes, as many know by now, my favourite side character, in Raul Esparza's Dr. Frederick Chilton. Question marks were raised early on last year about his possible return after considering the last time we saw him, Miriam Lass shot him through the cheek. And to be fair, he's doing pretty well for himself now, and just as you would expect, he too carries plenty of scars to show from the events.
Goodbye, Dr. Chilton. Happy hunting.
Now then, everyone is entitled to their own opinion, that's a given, but I've seen many people discontent about the pacing of the first few episodes. Yes, they were slower, but they were practically rebooting Hannibal's life. I personally liked the slower pace. It was building to a setting to which our characters were all being drawn to. Will's journey to find Hannibal led him across to Lithuania, Hannibal's childhood home. We learnt vital information there regarding his sister, Misha, and we also met Chio, who added a greater depth to that storyline and eventually led Will towards Hannibal's current location in Florence. But Will wasn't the only one looking for Lecter. While searching for Hannibal in Palermo, Jack, who was still grieving over the loss of his wife Bella, which had some truly emotional scenes by the way, especially seeing Jack at Bella's bedside and when he was at her funeral, ran into Chief Inspector Rinaldo Pazzi, whose rash actions and uncertain morals eventually led to his downfall. This was one of my 3 main scenes that I always wanted to play out in TV form. Episode 5, Contorno, gave that to me. After accepting a bounty and underestimating the man it was on, Hannibal captured Pazzi and sentenced him to a brutal hanging, bowels out, over the courtyard. That for me was one of the scenes of the season, and it led directly into another one. Barely having a chance to catch your breath, Jack went one-on-one with Hannibal once again. Well, I say one-on-one, it could have easily been classed as the beatdown of the decade. Jack overpowered and manhandled Hannibal, something that we have never seen before. Hannibal was vulnerable. His aura of control was lost. It was only his awareness that saved him from certain death. From then on, it was the beginning of the end. Hannibal knew that his time was up. And after Will and Hannibal found each other again, with the wonderful Mizumono music playing lowly in the background, Hannibal regained his control. Luring Jack back to his dinner table, he forced him to watch on in horror as he soared into Will's head. Viewers, myself included, were exasperated with what we were seeing. It was truly unbelievable. Who would have thought we would have been glad to see Mason Verger save the day? That led us into the mid-season finale, for me one of the show's best episodes. A pig baby, face removal, the deaths of Cordell and the ending of Mason Verger's story, and let's not forget Hannibal carrying Will Clarice-esque away to safety, which all culminated towards Hannibal's capture. Again, the Mizumono music was perfectly placed in this scene. You could see it in Hannibal's face, his compassion towards Will, and the hurt that etched across him when Will said that he never wanted to see Hannibal again. So, Hannibal left, but he made sure that when he did, if Will ever wanted to find him, he knew exactly where to look.
I want you to know exactly where I am, and where you can almost find me.
And as it happened, Will was in need of Hannibal again. Taking a 3-year time jump, now married, that man, Jack Crawford, came knocking once again. We've seen plenty of killers over the course of this whole show, but none of them have really matched up against the main man himself. But this killer was very unique. Debuting as the Great Red Dragon, Francis Dollarhide, the Tooth Fairy Killer, was Richard Armitage. In another phenomenal addition to the Hannibal world, Richard Armitage was able to convey the sense of inner conflict and emotional struggles that lie deep within Dolarhyde's psyche. It wasn't just the nature of his kills that made Dolarhyde so frightening, it was his targets. Targeting families is one way to strike at the core, but his brutal nature and his willingness to his becoming made him even more menacing. It was only that of Reba that helped us see the other side of Dolarhyde. So as Will reluctantly returned to the FBI, Hannibal was elegantly placed to give him a helping hand. Even behind bars, Hannibal remained as dominating as ever. Lines from "kill them all" to manipulating Dolarhyde's actions, and his continuous reminder to Alana of the promise that he's made her reaffirms to why Hannibal will always be the master manipulator. Over the course of that 6-episode arc, we followed the footsteps of the Great Red Dragon. His encounter with Will boasted that his physical prowess matched up against the rest of him, and we watched on in horror as he went to the Graham household and stalked Molly and her son. That, though, paled in comparison to the events of the penultimate episode and what befell poor old Frederick. Chilton suffered the fate that was written for Freddie Lowndes, having his lips bitten off and then burnt beyond belief. I must admit I would have preferred that particular fate to go the way of Freddie. Maybe I just enjoyed Chilton much more of a character than her, but with him surviving the tortures from Dolarhyde, who knows what might be in store for him in the future. All of this in the end led to one of the best spectacles in television that I have ever had the pleasure to witness. The Wrath of the Lamb, the season finale, possibly even series finale, had it all. Hannibal's escape, Dolarhyde faking his death, references to past events to link all the stories together, and of course, the final battle. The song Love Crime debuted, which is still stuck in my head now, as Hannibal and Will joined forces to take down and slay the Great Red Dragon. If the final shot of our two main characters was to see them heading over the cliffside, it was a fitting end to this magnificent series. The complicated relationship between Hannibal and Will has always been the centre of the story, and for Will to pull Hannibal over into the depths with him is a testament to the line, "Can't live with him, can't live without him." Of course we were teased with Bedelia in the after credits scene, which hints at Hannibal and Will's survival, but we all know there was so much more story to tell. It worked as a series finale, if it has to, but let's be honest, we all want more of this story. We want them to acquire the rights. We want to see a Silence of the Lambs season, and we want a new and original ending created by Bryan Fuller. My overall verdict for Hannibal Season 3, on an average, I'd say totting up all my review scores as a season on the whole would sit somewhere between a 9 and a 10. And just like Season 2, I'm deciding to go with a full 10 out of 10. Hannibal Season 3, just like Season 2, is an absolute masterpiece, fully deserving of its 10 out of 10 score and further cementing Hannibal's legacy as one of the best TV shows ever made. With the first half of the season able to magnificently blend in elements from both the Hannibal Rising and Hannibal novels, and the second giving us an in-depth look and focus towards the Great Red Dragon, Hannibal Season 3 is a credit to its genre and to its source material. The array of talent this show is able to assemble is absolutely astonishing. Most shows would kill for either Mads or Hugh as leads, but to add the titan that is Laurence Fishburne, Caroline Davernus, now regular Gillian Anderson, my personal favourite Raul Esparza, and let's not forget the main guest star, Richard Armitage as the Great Red Dragon, proves that Hannibal's quality has plenty of draw for some of today's top stars. Bryan Fuller has said that the one thing he would love to hear is for someone to come away from watching his version of the story and say Mads Mikkelsen is the definitive Hannibal Lecter. And Bryan, at least for me, that's exactly what you're getting. For me, these past few seasons have elevated Mads to a level that may never be reached. Anthony Hopkins put the character on the map, but he was a much more crazed and psychotic killer. Mads, on the other hand, is calm, collective, in control. His dark aspects are hidden beneath the skin, and you know fully well that they're there. He just commands the role and dominates any room that he steps foot in. Honestly, I imagine that the two stories over the course of the season was originally intended to be two separate seasons, Season 3 as the European Chase and Season 4 as the Red Dragon. Whilst in an ideal world that would be exactly what we wanted, more episodes in general, I'm grateful that the Red Dragon story was moved up to allow us viewers to be able to see it. I've said it before, but the art and design and the finely picked music for specific scenes are what helps make this show a very special one. Love Crime, as I've said, is still stuck in my head, and that Mizumono theme was lighter and used to brilliant effect on a number of occasions. Even some of the smaller details are so memorable, my favourite of that being the glimpse of Hannibal's notebook as he sat at Will's bedside in an attempt to find a way to reverse time. All in all, Hannibal Season 3 was another fantastic season of television. Whether we get more seasons, a movie, or nothing, it will not change the fact that this show from the very beginning has always been one of the very best. It will forever remain in the high quarters of my memory palace, and hopefully one day everyone's favourite cannibal will dine once again. Thank you very much for watching. Please leave a like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you on the next one.